It's nice to be up here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you today. And let me thank Gerhardt and the whole Sales 2.0 team. They always do a great job of putting on a great conference. I get a ton of insight out of it. Thank you for all the prep work you guys do. So let me start by giving you a little bit of background on myself, as soon as we get my presentation up. I've actually been selling and marketing for more than 25 years. I started in the financial services area as a stockbroker, spent a lot of time working with clients, moved into corporate finance. Then I went back to business school, and I really wanted to get great at selling and marketing, and I went to Procter & Gamble right out of business school, had a great experience there selling packaged goods products, and actually helping in brand management there for a while. And then I was able to actually move over to a great company called McKinsey & Company, where I mostly spent my time helping consult to other companies that were trying to improve their selling and marketing capabilities, and mostly in the tech industry. I ended up going back to the West Coast where I grew up, and since that time I've been working in the tech sector almost exclusively in selling and marketing and having a great time doing that. First, worked in the broadband area, brought the first DSL services here in the United States, and then I moved on to collaboration technologies. I was a head of marketing and handled business development for a company called Placeware Web Conferencing. We were the first competitor to, it was us and kind of WebEx that were in a kind of a Coke-Pepsi war on how to improve the way that we actually work and collaborate on a remote basis. Microsoft bought that company, and I ended up being the general manager for sales and marketing for their whole unified communications suite. And I enjoyed doing that. I was there for almost 8 years. We brought out a lot of other new technologies out into the marketplace. Most of those technologies, though, were really general-purpose technologies, not built specifically for sellers. They were built for information workers, general collaboration technologies. As I left Microsoft, I went to a company called DocuSign. I headed up all their marketing and their business development functions as well. And we were trying to figure out how to make sure we could leverage more digital technologies to help people close deals faster, whether you were a realtor, whether you were someone that was working in a big corporation, and making sure that you could do transactions much faster, bringing the world into the standards of doing digital transactions, not paper transactions, which slow us all down and are a real problem. And then I saw this spectacular company that was called ClearSlide that was doing something even better than that, which is focusing on bringing the entire interaction and how we actually work with our clients into a more digital framework. And so that's where I've been. Now, I do think we have gone through an interesting journey at this company. We've been around for more than 6 years. We've got over 100,000 subscribers all up. We're global. We've got 5,000 companies that use our service, but over 100,000 people. And we've had more than 100 million business interactions that have happened on our platform. And so I'm going to tell you a lot about what we've learned from customers in that time frame. How many of you happen to use ClearSlide here today? All right, we got a few of you. That's great. Thank you for your use of the service. And it's really a different way to think about improving your productivity. I'm the CEO of the company. As Rich mentioned, I struggle with making sure that we do a great job, like every CEO, of driving growth all up. And what I'm looking for are innovative new technologies that will help us be more productive, because we do have to raise our quotas on a regular basis. And there are great technologies and companies that are trying to help us solve that. Now, the way we solved it has definitely evolved. I'm going to show you sort of the old school way that we used to do it in the general world of collaboration. Quick little video of what sales meetings are like these days and how innovative they actually can be. So we're going to roll just a quick video here.
Tyler
has joined the meeting.
All right, well, this is Trip. Who's here?
Tyler's here.
Beth's here.
Okay, the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the...
Yeah, I'll be able to do it in like 30 minutes. John?
Has joined the meeting.
Hi, John.
Hi.
I was just trying to go over the purpose of today's meeting, which is to discuss the
Tyler?
Has joined the meeting.
Sorry, guys, I got cut off. Is Paul here? Send him in. That's great.
Put in your access code.
No, that's your PIN number.
It should be a 9-digit number.
Try pressing the pound key. Paul.
So I've prepared a presentation. I'm sharing it with all of you. You should be able to see it on your screen right now.
Got it.
I don't see a link anywhere.
It says I need to download a plugin.
We are all using Macs, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
So this is the sad reality of the world that we live in today, right? Despite hundreds of millions of dollars of investments in lots of great technologies that have all had the promise of improving how we collaborate, we're not there yet. There's a lot to be done. And the world's evolved. I mean, the reality is that old line web conferencing kinds of solutions and products that we built were pretty good. But the challenge that we had in building that stuff is what we were really trying to do was bring server-based technologies that worked on our premises up to the cloud, and hoping we could run that in a shared basis, lower cost structure, give people a little bit better experience. And we did. It was a little better. It's certainly better than getting on a plane and traveling all over the place. That said, it's kind of like when you move to a new metaphor, right? When you move from server-based technology into the cloud, it's kind of like going from, my analogy would be like going from radio to television. The first experience, I don't know if you guys watched the first years of television or see much programming, but it looked a lot like a radio announcer sitting in front of a microphone with a camera on him. It took about 5 or 10 years for them to figure out, wait a second, this is a whole new medium. We can put sets behind the person that's with the microphone. We can actually have drama. We can do special effects. The cloud's much like that. The first, I'd say 5 years, we were trying to figure out how to get everything up there. But what we didn't realize was that when people start interacting in the cloud using links and when it becomes pervasively available, and particularly as mobile devices are unlocking value and the opportunity to be constantly connected, it's a whole different medium, and it gives you new insight on what your prospects, your customers are actually interacting with, what they're actually doing. And that has changed expectations, particularly mobility and cloud services and big data have changed the world's expectations. And every one of our customers or prospects, and every one of our sellers, if you're in management, approaches the world first as a consumer. And we're walking around with devices that are changing the way that we interact with the world. We don't go outside without having a map generally of where if we're going to get lost. We know how to do this. We know how to get routed around traffic if you're using Waze or Google. You know when the weather's going to change. You might get alerts. You know how many steps you've taken in the day, how many calories are being burned. Right? This is the world, particularly the millennials, who are now more than, they're the biggest part of our workforce, now bigger than even, just actually I saw some great reports even just last week. They've now surpassed certainly the baby boomers a long time ago, but even Generation X. This is the way that our buyers and increasingly our younger sellers are all living, and that's changed everyone's expectations about how they want to be sold to, how they want to be approached, because the reality is people aren't buying the same way. In fact, buyers are now saying they're 57% of the way through the buying process before they're even willing to engage with a sales rep. They do a ton of their own research, and they don't trust reps or marketing that comes off of websites. What they trust are their social networks and their own research on the web when they look at ratings and reviews. So they come in with massive biases, and they don't want to waste time with reps that aren't adding immediate value. So if you have the opportunity to talk to a prospect and you do not take advantage of that, if you squander it with a less tailored presentation or something that's not high impact, your chances of success are really low if you're just sticking with kind of the old school marketing materials. Which is why only about 7% of the meetings that you actually get as a salesperson are actually converted into a second meeting. So they better be high impact. And as Rich, our prior speaker, mentioned, CEB says that now we have an average of 5.4 stakeholders, actually a much, much larger number of stakeholders, because people don't want to make choices on their own. They want to involve other people in their choices. So you've got to have collaboration technologies that will work not only with the primary contact that you've worked with or champions, but where you can see who else is being involved in the buying process. If they're forwarding on a link to your presentation or your materials, you should be able to actually see what's going on and who else might have some decision-making influence in that process. Here's the kinds of challenges that we hear about all the time from our prospects and clients, right? That forecasting is very difficult. They want more sales pipeline. They want to differentiate themselves from their competition. They want to understand what are their high-performing reps doing differently than their low-performing reps. When they're in the middle of a sales process, they want to know who's engaging and who's not. And by using cloud services, we can really track and give you insight on a lot of these things. And that's what's really changing. When I talk about digital insight, and I'll be very specific about this, that's the world that we're living in now, where you can really see what's happening and what your reps are doing differently, how customers are engaging differently in a way that's really quite advantageous. This is a chart from Gartner where they're laying out the future of what customers and sellers and employees really want, which is they want a unified experience. They want to be able to send an email with content attached, that digital content sitting in the cloud, where you can get usage data on that, where you can actually have that same kind of material available face-to-face on a tablet, or if you're presenting in person, or to have it available quickly on kind of a web or a phone call, and to have all this material not only available to you, but with content viewing analytics and accessible off of any kind of mobile device for your customer and for you as well, so that you're always empowered to actually make decisions and to be effective wherever you may sit and whatever it is that your prospects or your customers may want to actually engage with you. That's the world that we're moving toward. Gartner's got a pretty good handle on it. There are a number of other analysts that are talking about this kind of framework. And I would tell you that the three things that I would ask you to think about in entering this new world is to just do three things really well. One, make sure that you're using the most modern sales tools that are available to you. Particularly your sales reps, your customers will dramatically thank you for the efforts. Two, to make sure that every part of those tools is being utilized, particularly the mobile connectors and technologies that you can use off your phone, your smart device, your tablet. That stuff is super powerful. Almost every company that, like ours, that offers new sales enablement tools, interaction tools, has mobile connectors or capabilities. And for instance, ours are even connected into Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics. So make sure you're utilizing all those kinds of technologies. And third, as managers, we have to lead the way. We can't let our reps just take these tools and expect that they alone are going to get the job done. If we're not modeling the use of these technologies, if we're not using the insights that come from that in our coaching discussions, then we're really not helping our teams out, and we're certainly not leading in the way that we should to progressively set the standard for how we should be doing outreach. So those are the three big things, because these new tools will give you insights that will help your coaching and your forecasting abilities be way more effective, and I'll show you how. But let me start with number one. So what are the kinds of modern tools, and how do we improve interactions? Well, let's start with the fact that we know that things are a lot different. As we've talked about, lots of things in the world improve over time. Unfortunately, when it comes to prospecting and outreach, things aren't improving. They're getting harder because people are so inundated with messages, and as I mentioned, they do so much of their own research. If you go back to 2007, it took just less than four efforts of outreach to actually prospect and to get a hold of somebody. Now it takes over 8 attempts to actually do that same work, twice the amount of outreach. That's very, very challenging. And it leads you to think about, well, what about these old models that we've been using, and what impact would these kinds of insights have if you actually could know who actually is going to benefit and is engaging with your content, when in fact they are engaging, and what it is that they're finding interesting, or what is it that they might find less valuable. If you knew these things, how would that impact your ability to improve the effectiveness of your outreach? Because you can know these things. And when you do that, the old prospecting tools, particularly through email, but also through telephone outreach and through even some of your web marketing, can definitely get better. Because those conversion rates that we're so dependent on with our prospecting efforts all depend on focusing on the right people with the best possible content to boost those rates up. What you could be doing and should be doing is thinking about how to send information out so that you can get insights on when people have opened it up and see specifically what pages they viewed or what pages they skipped, where do they spend time. And those insights should come in real time. You should get an alert in your email, an alert on your phone that says something you sent out is being viewed right now, so that you can follow up. Because if you catch someone in the moment of consideration when they're looking at your content, or soon thereafter with a telephone call, believe it or not, they'll thank you. They won't be upset. They won't be mad. They'll say, hey, that's coincidental. That's spectacular. I was just looking at some of your material. And you can say, yes, that's great. That's why I'm calling. I want to make sure that whatever you were consuming was useful to you, and that I can answer any questions you may have and help to move these things forward. And you immediately take a more consultative tone if you know when people have picked up your content, and if you know what they've looked at. You can even tailor your messages to spend time in the areas that they're already naturally interested in, or avoiding areas where they may be confused. that can dramatically boost your conversion rate. So that maybe, rather than getting a 5% conversion, you get a 20% conversion. And the reason it gets so much better is not just because you're catching them in the moment of consideration. It's because you're not wasting time going after people who aren't looking at your material. The most valuable thing any seller or manager has is time. It's the most constrained thing we all have. And if we can just spend more time with prospects who are truly interested and know who those are from the ones that are kicking the tires or are not interested at all, that are saying, oh yeah, sure, call me back later, but never look at your content and material. If you can avoid those people that waste your time and spend all your time with people who you know are engaging because you can see what they're doing with your content and how they're forwarding it around their organization, you can dramatically improve your own effectiveness through that approach. The truth is, salespeople today are spending less time directly with their prospects and their customers than they ever have in recorded history. And again, a large reason for that is people are doing their own self-education. But great reps are still spending a ton of time with prospects and customers because they're not wasting time prospecting people that aren't interested. They have this ability to uniquely figure out who to engage with and how to spend more time and better than their competition to actually create more value. And that's the biggest thing we can do. And they do it through all modes of outreach. And these platforms that we're introducing now allow you to use the same content and to look at not just the time you're spending on the phone or in person, but the viewing content of how much time they've spent in emails, being sure that all the information, even when you are in person, is being logged after you've presented to them, or when you're on the phone, it's being uploaded into your CRM system with great analytics around that, so you can really do a great job of follow-up, so that your sales engagement is both, you've got more time that's being spent, it's being spent more valuably, and collectively leveraging more of your content, more of your toolkit, tailoring your messages, and your solutions to what your customers and prospects may actually find more valuable. You can also accelerate your sales cycles by using more mobile technologies, which is super important because your customers no longer really want to wait. This is the Gartner cycle for sort of the new expectations for mobile customers on how they want to engage. And what you can see here is there's a convergence that's happening in our digital lives where we're using web technologies on our phones to stay connected not only with our families and our personal lives, but with the communities that are important to us, and of course in our professional lives as well. And our digital expectations now have more of a preference, particularly younger folks, for social communities than ever before. They want to be catered to and served with concierge services. And unlike the old school days where we thought privacy was so important, again, millennial workers love the fact that when you do outreach that you know things about them. If you join their social networks, it's like the old days when I first started selling, or my dad was selling in financial services, where we used to go to the country club. When I was a kid, I can still remember I spent almost every day in the summer joining my dad to play tennis with his clients, and we'd have dinner down at the club, and we had a whole network of folks that we sold to, that we knew personally, spent time with. That was our club. That was our social network. That was our community. Now that's gone online. People don't spend as much time playing golf and playing tennis. I wish that we did. It was sure a lot more fun, I've thought. But instead, we've got all the stuff online, and if you don't take the time and the effort to engage in those communities, people are moving very, very quickly, and it makes sense to be a part of that, and you can also get all this new context for what people are interested in by actually making that happen. Now, the truth is, a lot of us don't spend time out there because a lot of sellers don't think they've got the best content or material available when they need it. So they just wing it for the most part. And the reason they don't have it available is it's hard to get that stuff in a position where you can take advantage of it from any device that you've got. Again, this is where some of these new services like ClearSlide and others do a great job of making sure that all the content that you've built, whether it's through your marketing team or through your sales group, is available not just on your computer, but it's available on your mobile device, it's available on your tablet, it's constantly in sync, so that when you want to have a conversation, wherever that may be, in an airport or with a customer or prospect on their premises, that all that material is just waiting for you. It's already synced and resides permanently on your device, and is constantly being updated, and it resides in the cloud, so that regardless of where you sit, you can be effective and have great conversations that include multimedia content. we live in a multimedia world. People love sound bites, they love videos, they want to see testimonials, and if you don't have great, snappy content materials available to actually reinforce your points, you're actually not going to be in a very strong position to beat your competition. But if you can have this stuff sitting on your mobile device, on your phone, available at a moment's notice, just to share some perspective from someone in a similar industry or from some sales material or content that makes sense, you can really capture the hearts, the mind, the attention of the prospects and audiences that you're going after. And the truth is, sales teams that are equipped with mobile devices are way more effective than sales teams that aren't, for a number of reasons. Not only because they've got great access to content and they can be connected, but the platforms you use should also make sure that you can do follow-up faster. After you've had that meeting, if you want to follow up with some content or material, why should you have to wait till you get back to the office when you could just pull up a template that's already sitting in your cloud library? Say there was a question about security that you didn't want to immediately answer or you ran out of time, you should be able to send that stuff back very, very quickly from your mobile device. And again, a lot of these platforms now make that possible with templates, because we do this already for marketing automation. We've got all this automated material that's being sent out on our behalf. But we can be using this ourselves just as effectively and have all the same content library available that we would have on our computers just sitting here on our mobile devices. And people are really impressed when, rather than waiting for a day or a couple hours, literally, you finish a meeting, you're sitting in the parking lot, and within 10 minutes, they're seeing emails coming back to you from the great stuff that you promised you were going to follow up on. And then you place that phone call. You can really accelerate how fast you can move through that sales cycle and set yourself apart from other competitors that you're working against. All right, the third area that I wanted to cover is just this coaching and forecasting with insights. If you'll use a sales engagement platform, a digital sales content solution like the ones that we have, you can then get all this information as well. It's not just great for the reps in their outreach. It's great for you as a manager, as a leader of the organization, because you can coach now with much better insight across all modes of outreach. The truth is only 6% of leaders, despite all the investments that we've made in CRM systems, have real confidence in the data that lives in their Salesforce, their Dynamics, their SAP, their whatever CRM system you might be using. And the reason for that is most of that data is self-reported. And a lot of our top reps don't really like to use this information anyway. They don't like to key in information. But if you gave them a platform that would automatically track every time they send an email out, every presentation or meeting that they had, and automatically suck that information out because the presentations they grabbed kept track of that, the people they were meeting with, the emails they sent, they were pulling out of the CRM system and was being tracked by an engagement platform. And if you could see all that viewing analytics, you'd be a hell of a lot more powerful as a sales manager to figure out what your top reps may be doing differently than the reps that are struggling. And that's what these platforms also do for your ability as a manager all up. You're able to see team by team how much time are your reps spending on the phone or in web conferences? How many emails have they sent out? What are their open rates? Who's being involved in that? And you can do it team by team. You can drill into it rep by rep. And all the same information then becomes available not only to you to give coaching, but for the reps to see themselves. That's another beautiful thing about millennial sellers, the younger workforce that we have, is they don't need the same kind of top-down coaching all the time. If you just give them access to what Rep A is doing, they'll look at it. If Rep A is doing a better job than they are, and if they can see what presentations, what materials, how are they spending their time, they can be on virtual ride-alongs to any call. And a lot of these platforms will record those conversations actually step by step with the presentation so they can be used as training content. LinkedIn does this. They're standardized on our platform. All 6,000 of their sellers use it, and they record everything they do, and reps, as they come on board, are able to get really fast training as a result of just learning from each other. Clear Channel and Comcast do the same thing on our platform. What about deals? 52% of forecasted deals never even close, right, because of all the self-reported information that's out there. But again, if you collected all the engagement data on how your reps are connecting with their prospects and customers, you could do a much better job of actually giving them coaching and feedback. For instance, even though they may have moved a deal up in their forecasted stage to something that's very close to closing, if you see that the level of engagement is very low, or that the presentations that have been sent out aren't being opened, aren't being forwarded throughout the organization, the links to those presentations aren't being sent, that could be an indicator that, wait a second, we may be a bit rosy on this forecast. I think you may be overconfident. Show me that this deal is really going to close, because what I'm seeing in the engagement level data doesn't seem to work that. And that's what we have with some of these slides. We're able to show what a weighted pipeline is within Salesforce and what our predicted pipeline closing would be on the right-hand side based on the engagement level data of how the activities of how your customers have interacted in the past with your content material correlate to signs of deals closing all up. And we can highlight deal by deal reps or deals that are actually maybe a little at risk, and also deals that maybe are in earlier stages that could be the bluebirds you should spend time focusing on if you're trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat at the end when you're a bit short by figuring out where is the deal cycle accelerating, where are engagement levels deep enough that it's worth spending that extra time and effort to actually bring things in. If you've got reps that are using a unified platform across the way they do their outreach through selling and marketing, through the way that they're using the phone, their emails, and their presentations, you get all this information that allows you to then be a much more effective coach and to be able to forecast these deals more effectively. So this is the new world that we live in. And if we can just spend more time coaching our reps and spending time not just on the basics of selling, but deal by deal, helping give them guidance on where things are going well or where they aren't, using real engagement level data, we can run more effective teams, and we can, quite credibly, help people to raise their quotas and feel okay about that because we can actually make them more effective. And that is exactly what we need in this time and age. We aren't increasing our teams as fast as we have in the past. We're in a tough economy that's not growing as quickly as we'd like, particularly in old line sectors, but being able to use more modern tools can definitely drive more effectiveness. So I'll open things up to a couple minutes of questions. If people do have any questions about how to use more digital tools or insights. Anybody have any questions? Gerhard.
How do you see you're developing a lot of new things. What's the future roadmap for this like? And how do you accelerate the thinking? Technology accelerates automatically, but the thinking about technology doesn't.
Yeah.
How do you use that? How do you create that map?
That's a great question, because that is, frankly, the biggest limitation we have is not the core technology. We're increasingly putting more investment into different ways of using engagement level data, getting more predictive analytics built into the toolkit. The biggest areas we're investing in now are building more management insights and better templates that we can use as managers to have standard ways of looking at the way that we're running things. But probably the biggest limitation we have is the mindset that people have, and which is a big part of this conference. And we've got Gerhard and our organization, by the way, doing some great work trying to lift the mindset of our own reps. Because so often what we're having to do is coach people how to think differently about their jobs. And a lot of what I think we need to spend time on in our technology area is not just giving all the new features and functionality, but really simplifying these interfaces so that it's more intuitive and easier to use the technology. I mean, the biggest challenge that we face in technology is not our ability to envision new stuff. It's our ability to make it so simple that people want to use it and to say, my God, why wouldn't I use this technology? Because it's so obviously better than anything else that's out there. And so what we're spending a lot of time on right now, frankly, is doing a complete overhaul of our user interface and user experience, in addition to some of the more advanced analytics and dashboards, to make this thing just drop dead simple to utilize. Because the more we can do that, the better off we can be as a team that's serving our clients and customers. But this whole mindset idea, I think so often we find that teams are somewhat paralyzed. We get these power users who just blow everybody away, but trying to get the next level of users to feel good about that, or folks that are kind of mired in the old way of doing outreach and business, is probably one of the biggest challenges that we actually face. And so that's where we're spending a lot of our time as well, is giving more insights on how to, in fact, begin using the technology. We've had kind of a professional services team that would come on board and help to bring the content that might be effective and valuable to reps. But that stuff's got to be kept up to date, and the product should actually be able to increasingly not only help the managers see what's valuable, but to even help the reps figure out what's the next piece of content that I could be utilizing that would help me in my next step of outreach with our customers. What are other people using that's being really high impact and having great insight, and how can we get more people using that? Thank you. Anything else?
Let's have a big round of
Thank you.
applause.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.